Look up at the sky and imagine, what if every eclipse, every falling star, every shimmering aurora had a deeper meaning? What if the very heavens shaped the fate of your world? Celestial events, whether rare or common, can transform stories, infusing them with awe, mystery, and cosmic power. And that's what I want to talk about today. How you can use these epic sky events to craft prophecies, power, your magic system, or even open up portals to other realms in your fantasy world. Welcome to another episode of Just in Time Worlds with your host, Marie Mullaney. We'll start by discussing the types of celestial events that you can have. First up, let's talk about scheduled and common celestial events. These are events that happen regularly, frequent enough that they're a natural part of life for the people in your world. But just because they're common doesn't mean they can't be used creatively. For example, I live in Finland. I see the northern lights on a fairly regular basis, even here in the southern part of Finland, in Helsinki. And every time I get a notification about the northern lights showing up, like clockwork, I will go and check if there's cloud cover and if I can actually see them, because they remain special. Now, maybe if I was living in the very far north and they were very common, they wouldn't be that special. But man, it is something else to see an aurora. Okay, so let's talk about some examples of these kinds of common and schedulable celestial events. There is, of course, the solar eclipse example. So a solar eclipse occurs when the moon passes between a planet and its sun, temporarily blocking out the sun's light. To the people of the world, this might be seen as a divine moment, or even a time of chaos and danger when the light vanishes. Similarly, a lunar eclipse happens when the planet passes between the moon and the sun, casting a shadow on the moon that blocks it out. This often turns the moon a blood red color, which can be seen as an ominous sign linked to ancient prophecies and rituals of blood magic. And then, of course, there is the aurora borealis, which I spoke about. The northern lights occur when solar winds interact with the planet's magnetic field, producing colorful displays of light in the sky. In your world, auroras could be seen as messages from the gods, the spirits of ancestors, or even a sign of magic being released into the world. Even though these events are somewhat predictable, they're great for showing how people in your world understand their universe, how they explain these events. What do they believe cause these phenomena? How do they react when the sky goes dark during an eclipse or lights up with vibrant colors during the aurora borealis? Festivals, ceremonies, or even mass panic could ensue, depending on the cultural context you build around these events. We'll talk about some specific examples of how these events can and were used in history and in fantasy a little later on. But before we get there, let's talk about scheduled but long-term celestial events. These events occur over long intervals, maybe even once in a lifetime. These moments feel epic and grand when they happen because they're rare and can be shrouded in legend and anticipation because they are schedulable. Again, let's look at a few examples. The conjunction of the planets is a great example of this kind of event. It happens when two or more planets align in the sky. And while this is visually stunning, it can also have real-world effects. The gravitational pull from multiple celestial bodies can cause shifts in tidal patterns on your planet, affecting the weather or even creating catastrophic tidal events. For the people of your world, a planetary conjunction could be a sign of destiny aligning or of great upheaval approaching them. Another example of this kind of celestial event are comets. Comets are icy bodies that orbit the sun, and when they pass close to the planet, they leave behind a glowing trail of light. The sight of a comet could be tied to ancient prophecies, or could signify the return of a forgotten deity. Since these events might only happen once every few generations, the stories surrounding them can take on almost mythical proportions. Even in our prosaic world, I remember Halley's Comet coming around when I was 7 years old in 1986. And it's a pretty special memory looking up at the comet and watching it through a telescope as it passed by. In a fantasy world, these type of celestial events are fantastic for building tension and adding weight to prophecies or legendary moments in your world. When these scheduled events finally arrive, they signal a time of transformation, making them the perfect backdrop for epic storylines or prophetic signals. Okay, so those are our two scheduled events. But there are also unscheduled or unpredictable celestial events. These events often have a dramatic impact on the world. They're awe-inspiring and, in some cases, catastrophic. Examples include meteor showers. These occur when debris from a comet or asteroid enters the atmosphere, creating streaks of light or falling stars across the sky. Now, while this is beautiful, they can also be a sign of massive impending danger, with larger meteors crashing to the surface and altering landscape, or even bringing mysterious materials with them which can be smithed into epic weapons. But meteor strikes can also be very dangerous. I mean, they did end the dinosaurs, and those bad boys ruled the Earth for 165 million years. Another example of such unpredictable events are supernovas, which is an explosion that occurs when a massive star reaches the end of its life. When a star goes supernova, it briefly outshines entire galaxies before fading away. Now, these events can alter the entire balance of a solar system and can be seen as a cosmic catastrophe. But in a fantasy setting, the death of a star could signify the end of an era, or the birth of new magic, or the awakening of ancient gods. But with supernovas specifically, they can also be really great as a prophetic event when the light of a far distant supernova reaches your planet. So the supernova doesn't need to be in your star system to have an impact on your world due to light traveling the way it does. Each of these celestial events offers a different tone and impact for your world building, whether they're expected or not. What kind of solar event would you like to use in your world building? Let me know in the comments below. And let's talk about some specific use cases for these celestial events and the benefits they offer for stories. Celestial events are more than just beautiful phenomena in the sky. They can serve as powerful narrative tools in your storytelling. Let's start that exploration by talking about how celestial events can be used in religion as a sign of the gods. Throughout history, people have often looked to the skies for signs from the gods. In your world, celestial events can be interpreted as direct messages from deities. And this has happened in our world. Consider, for example, a solar eclipse, which might be seen as a moment of divine wrath or a beginning of a battle between the gods, casting the world into temporary darkness. The Mayan civilization in our world might have used this kind of predictive power. They were masters of predicting solar and lunar eclipses, and these events were, we believe, often tied to religious ceremonies. The precision of their prediction gave their priests immense power, as they could foresee when the gods would cast a shadow over the sun and when that shadow would be lifted. Eclipses might have marked important sacrifices or the beginning of significant events in their religious calendar. Basically, the priests would use their ability to predict the eclipse as a means of demonstrating that they have divine favor. The sun will return if we sacrifice to the gods. And then, as predicted, the sun returns. Now, I'm not saying it was quite that cynical, but it certainly does make for a good trick to make the sun vanish. In a similar way, the appearance of a comet could be seen as heralding the birth of a messianic figure, or a sign of a god's return to the world. These predictable but still spectacular moments can add gravity to your world's religious beliefs, with celestial events acting as cosmic time markers for major spiritual shifts and for points on your calendar of your world. Celestial events can also be used as more than just signs from the gods. They can represent powerful forces or even portals into other realms, having a direct impact on your magic system. Take the aurora borealis, for instance. In Norse mythology, some believe that the northern lights may have inspired the concept of the Bifrost, the simmering rainbow bridge that allowed the gods to travel between the realms. In my own world of Sangwheel Chronicles, I took that idea a step further. In my world, the aurora borealis is called the ghost lights, and they're not just a beautiful celestial event. They do hold real magical power, and those who know the secret of drummer magic in the Rulara culture can use the ghost lights as a means of travel. So the ghost lights act both as a source of power and as a pathway for those who understand the magic behind them. And this dual purpose allows for all kinds of mystical adventures, where the sky itself becomes a road to distant lands. You can also use comets, eclipses, and so on as a means to create portals into planes beyond the material plane. And if you're interested in exploring planes and planar magic more deeply and how to use such celestial planes, check out my video on that topic in the information card. And now, let's chat about using celestial events as prophecy time markers. The cosmic nature of celestial events gives them a sense of inevitability, as though the heavens themselves are marking the passage of time. Whether it's in the rise of a hero, the fall of a kingdom, or the return of a legendary being, celestial events can serve as pivotal time markers in your world's lore. A great example of this can actually be found in David Eddings's Malorian series. In this series, a prophecy culminates when the light of a distant supernova finally reaches the world, signaling the moment when the chosen one, Belgarion, must fulfill his destiny. And that supernova caused instability of stars in its region, causing the problem in the first place. And when the light reached Belgarion's world, that was when the prophecy was fulfilled. So it gives that whole prophecy this very cosmic scale and feel. And you can do the same by linking key moments in your world's history to celestial events. And finally, let's talk about using celestial events as a core part of your magic system. Imagine a world where certain spells or abilities can only be cast during specific celestial events. Maybe magic users draw their power from the stars and their abilities become stronger or weaker depending on the alignment of the constellations. So you tie it into your world's equivalent of the zodiac. For example, magic users in your world might only have access to their full powers during the time when the sun is in the house of the water carrier and so on. This could force your magic users to very carefully plan their battles and their great rituals, waiting for the perfect celestial alignment to maximize their abilities. Or perhaps it's more tied to something like shadow magic is only available during a solar eclipse when the world is plunged into darkness, making those moments when the eclipse happens even more dangerous and critical in your world's history. This approach can add an exciting layer of strategy to your magic, where celestial events are not just atmospheric, but essential to how the fantasy elements on your world function. Celestial events have the power to influence every corner of your world, from religion and prophecy to transportation and magic. By incorporating these cosmic moments into your world building, you can create stories that are larger than life, that have this massive cosmic scale to them, with the very skies above your character's head shaping their destiny. And those are my thoughts on using celestial events in fantasy world building. If you want to connect and chat about this or any other fantasy world building, there's a link down below to my Discord server where there is a community of world builders ready to chat. And if you like what I do here and you want to support me and check out my own world building, there's a link down below to my books. I have my epic fantasy series, I have a sci-fi series, I even have some spicy novellas about a fairy world. But please don't feel pressured or obligated to support me financially. You can also support the channel just by watching another video. Since you enjoyed this video, maybe check out my video about creating a cosmology for your fantasy world. And I will see you soon for another episode of Just in Time Worlds, where we build what we need when we need it.